Hey, this is Brandon McManus, Denver Broncos Super Bowl champion, and you listen to The Scoop on alscoop.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, whenever you happen to be listening. Welcome back to The Scoop. This is Season 4, Episode 38. I'm John DiCarlo, joined this week by Matt Vender, Kyle Gauss, Graham Foley.
Room's empty this week.
Yeah, room's empty. They blew us off. They don't.
Yeah, we're used to having a guest in here. It's a little bit of a different vibe this week.
Yeah, no guests in the palatial alscoop.com studios, but we do have 2 recorded interviews with guests on the podcast this week. Mark Macon, who is the assistant to the head coach, Aaron McKie, new member, returning member of Temple staff, Temple's all-time leading scorer, of course. If you know Temple basketball, you know Mark Macon. Have a long interview with him that we'll play for you in a couple of minutes. And also had the opportunity to talk to Michael Dogbe over the phone. Michael Dogbe, of course, was a late 7th-round draft pick of the Arizona Cardinals, one of 3 Temple football players drafted last week into last weekend. We'll probably recite this stat a couple of times. Temple's one of just 21 schools in the nation to have multiple players selected in each of the last 4 drafts, and of those 21 schools, Temple's the only Group of 5 program to accomplish that feat. So, pretty good for them. And again, they've had some undrafted rookie free agents who have either signed somewhere or gotten minicamp invites. Robert Travato with the Giants, right?
Yes.
Dalvon Randall with the Eagles, and
Jalen Robinson
with the Falcons. So 6 potential Temple pros in the NFL. Matt, you've got finals coming up.
Yeah, it's been
You've got
a little bit of a
real
crazy
life
week.
is intersecting. How you doing? How you holding up?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, it's good to be in here. Good to get my mind off a few things. But yeah, I'm glad to be here, and excited to be podcasting again.
Yeah. So let's talk about. We'll get right to this Mark Macon interview. Again, we've had the opportunity to talk to Chris Clark, to Jimmy Fennerty, to Anthony Russo, although it's football related. Talk to 2 members of the basketball staff over the last couple of weeks. Still trying to get Monty Ross, although he's been on the road recruiting, so we're still going to try to get Monty. Hopefully, maybe get Aaron again. Mark Macon, one of 2 former players coming back in off-the-bench roles. Mark, again, assistant to the head coach. So, again, Mark's not going to be recruiting on the road. Not even really going to be coaching in a capacity on the floor, but Mark's back. Jason Ivey is back as the director of player development, and had a really enjoyable conversation with Mark. He's always a really interesting interview. We got into a lot of stuff, what it's like to be back. Of course, talked about that 87-88 team. Talked about how he dove right into coaching. As soon as he was done playing, he eventually joined Sean Chaney's staff. When Chaney retired, Fran Dunphy takes over. Mark went down to Georgia State, then went up to Binghamton. Kevin Brodus eventually got into trouble up at Binghamton. Mark was kind of left with a lot to deal with as the interim head coach. Was in a tough spot up there, and has been out of the game for a while, and Aaron's asked him to come back. So got into, again, a lot of stuff. Talked about that memorable 87-88 team. He answered answered every reader mailbag question that we got from the message boards and from Twitter, including a lot of stuff about, we delved into everything. Rockland Al, you'll hear, asks him, what did Billy King do defensively during that 88 Elite 8 game that was so effective against you? D-Blaze75 from the message board even asked him about, should college athletes be paid? Mark had a really interesting answer to that.
It's a relevant topic right now, for sure.
Yeah. We've got some mailbag questions of our own to get into, so let's play this interview with Mark Macon. Again, this is a good 40-minute long conversation, but again, we got all of your mailbag questions answered, so hopefully you guys will enjoy this, and then we will react to it on the other side. Most people don't get the chance to come home again, and this is like the second time for you coming home. It might sound like the obvious question, but I mean, how does it feel to be back and just being back in a role here again at the program that launched your career? It meant so much to you.
It feels great. It is a whirlwind of emotions when I look at it, and I'm not an emotional person per se. but it's great because this is where I want to be. Not where I want it to be. This is where I want to be. Since I came here in 1987, I've never really left. So I've always had a place here or someone here where I could stay with in the Philadelphia area. But mainly I had a place. So, so it's amazing to me to come back again. You know, to start out with Coach Chaney, and then end up with one of my favorite players at Temple, but never got a chance to play with him, but really got a chance to help him see what it was like to be a person who was going to have responsibilities put on their back.
Talk to me about assistant to the head coach. Tell fans what that means. What's your job going to be like? And I know you can't go out and recruit, but what is a day-to-day job going to be like?
It's called assistant to the head coach, almost like chief of staff. You have to be prepared to do the things that he needs you to do. Also, you're in a role where you have to be his eyes and ears at times. You're delegated things to do in terms of I have to make sure that I do my job in terms of if I have to do something with say for instance, let's give an example of the health and wellness. Because I'm in the health and wellness, then I have to make sure that all the guys are healthy from a standpoint of the trainer giving me information that I have to relate to him. If I have to be with the mental aspect of training or the mental aspect of young men dealing with depression and all those kinds of things, I have to be able to get information from those people who do it, maybe the psychologists or whomever, and relay that information to him. So I'm almost like the in-between guy, as well as doing everything else that he needs me to do. Those are things that were delegated to me, and for me it's great because I still get a chance to be around the guys. I still get a chance to mentor them from a standpoint of just expressing to them how important it is to be diligent in what you're doing, to have a plan in what you're doing. And I've been there. I've done it, you know, from a standpoint of, again, having a plan. A lot of young men come to school and don't have plans. A lot of young men go through school never to have a plan until almost their last year of school. Now we have to set these guys up straight and be ready when they hit the ground running. I think that's important. I think he understood one thing, and I equate this to a person like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. You can't be the smartest person in the room. You got to have a Wozniak and a Wayne. And I forgot who worked with Steve Jobs, but that was the guy that owned the Portland Trail Blazers before he passed.
Paul Allen?
No, Paul Allen worked with. Paul Allen worked. You sure?
No, you're probably right.
He passed.
I was thinking out loud, yeah.
He worked with Bill Gates.
Okay.
Those guys, had they not met those guys, computers wouldn't be around. You know, everybody had their job to do, and that's what we have here. He put me in a position where I didn't have to go out and do the grunt work of a 25-year-old. You know, I still have relationships in areas that I can help the guys out with. You know, I don't do any recruiting. I don't do any of those kinds of things. But I'm here for when people come in and they want to talk to and they want to understand what is it like to be at Temple? What was it like then as opposed to now? You know, I can give them insight because it's really you can't reinvent the wheel. It just can be a little shinier. That's all.
Yeah. Well, how did this come about? When the transition was announced, did he talk to you about this a while ago, or how did he approach you and say, "Hey, I want you to be part of this"? Was it a more recent thing, or is it kind of just something that's kind of stewed up over a while?
I honestly can't tell you. I was doing the radio, and we always talk basketball anyway.
Yeah.
We've always been in that essence when we talk, when he was playing and I was playing, and when he was playing and I wasn't playing, we always talk basketball. We come from the same cloth in terms of how we came through high school with a coach who was very, very disciplined, very structured in terms of what he did. My high school coach was the same. Then we end up going to Temple and getting put in the stew with Coach Chaney and all of his ganders. And you come to just kind of say, you know what, I need somebody around me that understands what I'm trying to do. And it just kind of happened. We talked about it, but not in a sense where I want to hire you, because I never knew he was getting a job until everybody else knew. You know, and I wasn't gonna push up on him and say, man, I want to. No, you know, if you need me, I'm here. You know, and I'm glad that he needed me. You know, because he had there are plenty of guys that, you know, could do this job. You know, there are plenty of great coaches out there. There are plenty of Temple guys, you know, that are in the coaching realm that, you know, could have been or had this position. I was just lucky to be the one he chose.
So you've been out of the coaching game since 2012, and a fan might come to you and say, Mark, you've been out of the game for a while. What makes you think you're ready for it again? What makes you want to be back? What do you bring to this? Obviously, you played in the NBA. You've got the experience. You paid your dues before as a coach. What makes you want to get back into it?
It's not. I don't have to be. I'm not back into it from a standpoint of out there on the floor coaching. I'm back into it from a standpoint of mentoring young men, mentoring the coaches, because again, I've been there. I've seen the goods and the bads of it. You know, and it was great for me. So I'm a mentor. I am a guy that might see something that you don't see on the floor, and I can tell you about it. Or we can have a meeting and I can say, well, this is the certain things that you need to look for, and such and such and such. And these are things that they're going to do, or he might do. Just be aware of it. You know, again, that mentorship. You also have Monte Ross. You also have Chris Clark, who's been here. You know, those kinds of guys I can talk to, and they can relay messages. I don't have to be in the forefront of anything, you know. And I'm not coaching. I'm not coaching at all. I'm actually sitting there learning, you know. And that's what I've been doing since I walked away from the game, and the game walked away from me.
What have you been up to? What's it been like since then?
I've done some training. I've done some counseling. I was always big on my body and my health and my mentality. But I stayed involved in watching basketball. Always, the nuances of the game have really changed. We moved from, you know, 2 guys inside to 1 or no guys inside. Everything is perimeter oriented. Everything is spacing. The tempo has gotten faster. But again, the wheel hasn't changed. It's just been shinier. That's all that's been happening with this new, quote unquote, new game. This game is not new. That same kind of speedy game was played in the 40s and 50s. You know, getting up and down the floor, guys getting up and down the floor. It's been played. You just took the center out and made him a jump shooter, positionless kind of guy. You know, a guy that can do stuff that Connie Hawkins could do anyway. A guy that can do stuff that Wilt could do anyway. You know, Wilt could handle the basketball. Wilt could pass the basketball. Wilt could do things. You know, Connie Hawkins was the same guy. He could dribble the basketball. He could shoot the basketball. Magic Johnson would have been labeled a center, but he was a point guard. You know, those kinds of guys. So I mean, it's no different. The wheel's just shinier. That's all.
What made you want to get back? So you're done. I mean, you're a former first-round pick, played in the NBA, played professionally. What made you want to get into coaching in the first place? Because some guys play and they're done. They're like, I'm good. I don't want to deal with that. But you did it, and then you did it at Georgia State, and you did it at Binghamton, and you kept going with it. What made you want to get into it, and what kept you going?
Well, I have a person that I loved. He was my mentor. I had 2 mentors in college besides Coach Chaney. One was Coach Maloney. May his blessings be full of flowers as he made the transition. The other one was Nate. Nate Blackwell was the only reason I was going to get into coaching. My thing was, I'm an instructor. I don't call myself a teacher. I graduated from Temple with a degree in education. I wanted to get into teaching, and the more I studied the nuances of teaching, it was more of what I got on the floor that I could be able to give. And Nate and myself always talked about it. And I told him, if you ever became a head coach, I want to coach with you. I wanted to coach with you. And then Coach Chaney asked me a few times, and I agreed to coach with him, and because, hey, he was my mentor as well, you know, my main mentor. But those 2 guys, Nate and Coach Maloney, were They were my coaches outside of Coach Chaney. Coach Chaney was like my father, my grandfather, my older brother, all in one, and my mom too. So, because he had to give those, those sermons and things to me, and what people fail to realize, we didn't talk basketball all the time. We talked life most of the time I was in his office. So,
what were you at Binghamton? You got put in a bad spot. It was tough. What do you take from that experience? I know you said you're not going to be out on the floor, but again, some guys would have walked away and said, "Nah, I'm not going to. I could walk away. I've got it." But and even after Temple, you okay, I'm going to go down to Georgia State, and I'm going to stick through, taking over everything that happened in Binghamton, and you stuck through it. Where again, other guys could have walked away. What did you take from that experience, and what do you take from it that you maybe even just passed on to Aaron or anybody now?
I caught a bug. I got the bug. Two. It's like college and or any other thing. You persevere. You persevere. Binghamton was a tough situation, but I got great young men out of it. Great young men that are doing great things. Some of my guys are still playing. Some of them are coaching. Some of them are doing different kinds of things in business and all kinds of great things that they do. I mean, one of my guys is a fireman. The other one's, again, it's just the relationships that I created with the players, and I was becoming, I'd like to say, a great administrator. I was learning it. It was a tough situation, but it was a situation I wasn't prepared for it, but I reveled in it. I loved it because I was learning something new. Not just to being a ball player, but being able to, again, instruct young men and learning the ins and outs of me as a head coach, not an assistant, but as a head coach. And when you move over from 3 chairs down to 1 chair up, it's a different beast. It is. And so you're making crucial decisions about a whole lot of things, but definitely people's lives and your life as well.
You've been around, you've kind of been able to gauge where the fan base is, and everybody's like, man, we want to get back. We want to get back to where we were before. We were the program, and Dumpf won a lot of games. One thing that they hadn't been able to do was get to that second weekend in March. Within the past month, since Aaron's taken over, you had Damian Dunn in the fall with recruiting, and then Josh Pierre-Louis signs. You get a legacy kid like Jake Forrester. You get Ty Strickland. Seems like there's some real, obviously talk is cheap, you got to go out there and do it, but there's been some tangible buzz over the past month. What's it like to see that and feel that again?
It's great. It's a cultural change. It's like putting, you got your soup. You got all the things that go in your soup. You got your potatoes, you got your carrots, you got your celery, you got your tomatoes, but it's like sprinkling different kinds of seasoning in it. You got some cayenne here. You got some pepper, regular black pepper here, a little salt here, some oregano. You're putting those things in your soup, but you have to let it cook. The buzz is great because it's boiling, but you have to let the soup cook. And that's going to be the thing. I think in terms of the culture, he's creating a great culture here for us. Back to the grind and the toughness that they had all the time. But again, for the buzz part of it, you're going to see something different. And I don't want to speculate or make people rush into things. That's why I talk about the soup. You got to let it cook. You got to let it cook because it might not happen fast. I like to say, in doing my research, and he's an excellent, great coach. I think, and I love his system. I love the things he do. But it took him 17 years to win two championships. And that's Jay Wright. He had the chance to make his soup the way he wanted to make it. And he let it simmer. It boiled up, then he let it simmer, and it simmered down until he got the kind of players he wanted for his system, and it made them champions. And that's what we want to do. We want to let this soup cook so we can become champions.
I think you make a great point because, again, it might. So, some Temple fans out there might say, "Man, it's sacrilegious to consider Villanova to be the benchmark." But I think a lot of people look at them and say, "Hey, man, okay, they're in the Big East, but the American had 4 bids. Temple's facilities are just as nice, if not nicer. They won 2 titles. Why can't we do that? And Jay's talked about that. And again, when it's the other team that's winning, he talks about that we're playing the Villanova way. That we're playing Villanova basketball. That stuff was real. They've come in here a couple of times and acted not even in a cocky way, but kind of like they owned the place. When guys fell, they were picking up someone off the floor. There was a purpose in the layup line. Is that what you guys are trying to aim to get to?
It is a cultural change. He changed the culture. And he set the standard in the Philadelphia area because he has a championship. That's what we want. You know, but you have to do it by letting the soup cook. I'm going to keep saying it.
Yeah.
And, you know, but we have changed the culture. Aaron has helped change this culture. And it's simmering. We're going to have it boil. It's going to boil over. Then we're going to let it simmer again, and we're going to cook it. We're going to cook it, and hopefully we can get 2-3 championships out of it. But the goal, that's the goal. That's the end goal. But the number one goal is to create good young men, good citizens, where they can go out, because everybody's not going to be able to play basketball for the rest of their lives. But you're going to have to do the 3 things. Work to put food on your back. Food in your stomach, not on your back. Shelter over your head, and clothing on your back. And create family structure. That's what it is.
You keep mentioning, and again, it's not that Fran didn't talk about this, but you guys are talking more, and I think the fan base was ready for like something a little different. You guys keep talking about culture, and I think it's important. And you know, and Aaron went out there and kind of talked about that right away. And again, fans can say talk is cheap, but he went out and said, "Hey man, I don't feel like I need to be apologetic about this. We're in this to win a national championship." Is that did you guys think about that and say, hey man, we have to establish that. We can't act like we're just this program that's like, okay, if we get to the tournament, that's okay, but we got it. Why shouldn't we be aspiring to that? Like, is it because it seems like culture comes up a lot, and it's not just it's not just talk. It's coming up over and over again, even just unprompted. Is that just an exciting thing to be able to kind of reestablish that, like you're talking about?
It's a mentality. You have to change your culture. You have to, and this is a great culture to have now. Don't get me wrong. Fran did a great job. He was a great CEO of a company called Temple. You know, he had great teams, and he had teams that were at level, but they were always competing to win. But the culture here has to be one of the same and even higher. And that's what you do. You take the standpoint from where Fran was, and you lift it. You push it to a higher level. I think Litwack had his day. Then Casey came, and then Coach Chaney came, and he pushes the thing up. Fran comes in, he rides, and he pushes. They go to the tournament almost every year. Then you have a lull. Now Aaron comes in, and he has to push it. With us, he has to push it. That was changed. There was 3 culture changes. You had Litwack, Casey, Chaney. Litwack and Casey were similar. Chaney, then you have Fran Dunphy, now you have Aaron. All 3 cultural changes. You know, you went from zone playing with Chaney and Litwack, tall man-to-man playing with Fran, and it's going to be some of the same with us. Maybe we throw something in there, and because it's in our system, but in this day and age, it's very hard to play a zone with everybody spread out all over the floor with people in the stands shooting the ball from the stands. You know, so you have to be able to have a culture that can withstand anything, that can dance slow, that can dance fast, that can play defense slow, and that can play defense fast, but always playing hard and playing with the culture of we're out here to win games.
Coach Chaney used to say, among many things, and you know more than anybody else, I can't remember when he started saying, but he's like, I want guys with teeth in their stomach.
Teeth in their stomach.
Is it still possible to get that ingrained in kids today? Or is it just not that you don't see tough players, that you still see tough players, but with things being the way they are now, it could be social media distractions, it could be some of the social. We're talking more about mental health and depression and sickness and health, all sorts of stuff. Is it still possible to really drill in that culture like you did in the 80s and 90s, or do you have to do it differently now?
All you got to do is look at the two teams that were in the championship. Look at the two
it's
teams.
kinda simpler than people make it out to be.
Look at the two teams that were in the championship. Look at the 4 teams that were in the Final Four. Look at the 8 teams that were there. Look at the 32, the 16 teams, and then the 32 teams that's on. They had teeth in their stomach. They were tough. They were tough teams. When you get down to the final 2, they had teeth in their stomach.
How do you do that? Is it little things like you guys knew when you were playing, like not just John Chaney, but a lot of coaches were like, I don't want to see any body language out of you. You know we're not going to get calls on the road. So I don't want to see any shrugging your shoulders and stuff. Is it just eradicating little habits and saying like, hey man, move on to the next play? Is it just all sorts of little things that add up to
you're answering the question. Yeah. You're answering the question because you've seen it. And you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But it's also being monotonous. Monotonous till you just pretty much hate it. You hate it, then you have to do it again. You go A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, then back to A. You don't have to go through the whole alphabet. And most good to great coaches, they keep it simple. A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, back to A. And they do it every single day. And they do not let up. And they hold you accountable. So what Coach was, his thing was, let me be the emotional one. You guys don't be emotional. I'm going to be the emotional. I'm going to be the one that's going crazy out there. You need to play with your heads. Play with your heads, you win. Play with your butts, you lose. Heads you win, tails you lose. That's what his thing was. I can say it differently. But play with your heads, you win. Play with your tail, you lose.
I want to ask you about some other stuff too. You probably don't remember this, but when you were here as an assistant at Temple, I got to do a story for Street and Smiths about was one of the 50 greatest programs of all time. And I was asking about the 87-88 team. And I asked you what your favorite memory was of that season. And you gave me a really interesting answer. So I'm going to ask you that question again. I want to see if you tell me the same thing.
I'll tell you the same thing when I couldn't speak to the media. I don't know if that was the answer I gave you, but I think that was the greatest thing that happened to me when Coach, one of the greatest things, because I don't remember, because I'm 50 now, so you can't make me remember stuff like that.
Yeah, 42, I'm not too far behind.
But when he we had finished playing UCLA and all the cameras and stuff was in my face, and I could speak, but I just wanted to pretty much play, but it was taking away from all the other players, because here you have this guy coming in with this highly touted guy who chose Temple and that kind of thing, and he just scored these points and now everybody's in his face. No. It takes away from Timmy, who's been here 4 years. It takes away from Howie, who's been here 4 years. Mike, who's been here 3 years. Those kinds of things, and Ramon and those kinds of things. So it was unfair to them. I think for me, that released the pressure from me. So.
I think so. What you told me, and I always this cracked me up because it was. I think I might have asked you too, like the mania of that year and the pressure that was on you guys. You told me that one of your favorite memories of that year, and I swear to God, you said was meeting Whoopi Goldberg.
Yes, you're talking about.
Met her out in Vegas, right?
Yes, at UNLV. Oh, listen.
That was the first thing that came up, and I said, Mark, give me a. You were like, that was a big deal to me.
Listen, Whoopi Goldberg and Grace Jones are the two most beautiful women to me ever. Whoopi Goldberg, when I met Whoopi Goldberg,
this was when you guys played UNLV.
We played UNLV. She had this kind of, it was a shy beauty. You know what I mean? It was almost like she was shy, but she was beautiful. I mean, everything about her stood out to me. It was like a glow. She was, from that point on, I was like, wow, I love her. She is beautiful.
How did that happen? Was she just like she was just at the game?
Mike Tyson was there. There was guys there, but she just happened to come in the locker room. Just so happened, and it was like, it was awesome. It was awesome. It was awesome. Now you go back real far. That's 1987, 88. Good gosh, that game was on YouTube the other day. I didn't look at it though. I didn't look at it.
Again, I know what you're saying. Is some of the same principles apply, but it was sort of a different time, different era. But tell people who are listening what the mood was like, the energy was like on campus. You're talking about that game. Even though social media didn't exist, that was a big game. You're playing at UNLV. All those celebrities descend upon out in Vegas. And that's what Coach Chaney wanted for you guys.
Right.
We're going to play big-time basketball anytime, anywhere. What was life like on Temple's campus at that time when you guys were winning as much as you did?
For a person of my understanding, I was very focused. So I wasn't into, and I'm still not today, I wasn't into the hype and the mania. But when you look back at it, it was unbelievable. It was hysteria around here. If it was like, imagine shedding all of Broad Street down after we beat Villanova. Completely shut down. You know, there were times when, and I always left the game last because I needed to calm down. I needed to bring myself down. And so I would walk on the opposite side of the street. I would have my hat pulled down because I'm focused. I'm trying to just get back to my room and kind of decompress. And you would see all kinds of people, and people would, you know, hey, Mark, and I would talk to them, you know, because I didn't have a problem talking to people when I was spoken to. But it was wow. Campus was wow, and it was like from the time we became number one and we beat Villanova and beating North Carolina, you know, Temple they were there. We were there. And everybody was loving it, you know, all over the country. You know, we were something to be reckoned with, you know, Coach being bigger than life. You had John Thompson, who was bigger than life. You had, oh my goodness, St. John's.
Lou Carnesecca.
Carnesecca, bigger than life. You also had...
You guys were one of the IT programs.
Yes, coming around, and especially being in the Atlantic 10, coming out of the Atlantic 10, and one of those teams, like you said earlier, we didn't care where we played you at. You know, we come to your house, and we gonna want to eat in your kitchen. We want to eat in your kitchen, you know. And if you let us cook, we gonna cook too, you know. So we gonna cook, we gonna serve the food, and we gonna eat the food. And it's ironic I said that because Tom Izzo took that. He took that from Coach. You know, he loved the fact that Coach would go and play anybody anywhere in the Lions' den because if you're prepared, what do you have to be afraid of? Proper preparation prevents poor performance.
Talk to me about the current roster now and who stands out to you and what you've seen so far being around these guys. And maybe who's standing out to you, maybe not just on the court but off the court, the way certain guys are carrying themselves. Who's popping out to you as Mark Macon and saying, like, I like what I'm seeing from that guy, I like what I'm seeing from
Well, I like all the guys. I like them all. I love Pierre Louis, Rose, J.P. Mormon, Dre Perry, Arashma, who's a new guy, Justin. But my favorite guy, and it's not from a standpoint of playing in anything. I think the two that stand out to me, personally, because Rose isn't playing right now, are Pierre Louis and J.P. Mormon, because they're kind of leaders. But my guy, personally, that I like and I enjoy more so than anything, because he reminds me a lot of myself from a quiet standpoint. He's a thinker, and that's Dre Perry. He's a thinker. You got to worry about what is he thinking about? What's on his mind? You know, what is he doing right now in his head? You know. So
what's possible for him, because I mean he has the athleticism. I know he hasn't found his stride offensively, and this team may not need him to, you know, be a double-digit scorer, but he looks like a versatile piece. What's possible for him this coming season? What do you guys need out of him?
I think for all guys, it's you have an open door. You have a slate right now during the summertime to show us what you got. That's the cultural change. Show me what you got. I'm gonna throw these cookies out here. If you're hungry enough and you're a cookie monster, go get them.
Like that.
You know, if you're hungry enough and you're a cookie monster, go get them. Show me that you can eat these cookies. Show me you can fend people off and get these cookies. Show me. That's the cultural change. I think that these guys, and as well as Dre, it's an open. They have to be an open book right now. Coach has to see what you can do, so now he can put guys in place. You know.
So we got some. If you're up for it, we got some reader mailbag questions from our message boards and from Twitter. So this is from a screen name from the message board, Green Street Owl. He's got a couple questions. Mark's favorite win or on-court memory at Temple?
I think one of my favorite wins really was, I have two favorite wins. So I'm going to give them two. I can't give them one. My freshman year, beating Villanova here. Mm-hmm. My senior year, before we went into the tournament, beating West Virginia. Mm-hmm. But my fondest memory is having my mom here. Mm-hmm. And I didn't play for my senior day. Mm-hmm. Having my mom and my family, a couple of my family members here. Mm-hmm. That was my greatest moment. Mm-hmm.
And this follow-up question, you may have answered it here. Favorite off-the-court memory that's basketball-related, perhaps a colorful, well, this would be different, perhaps a colorful Coach Chaney story, which I'm sure you have a million of. Maybe a Coach Chaney story that we've never heard before.
I couldn't tell you a story because I can't remember it, but he used to always talk about this guy, Vitamin Flintheart. and it's only a few people that remember the story. That's Mike Vrieswick and Dwight Forrester. They can remember the story, but it was one of the most funny stories that he told, and I could never remember it, but I could just remember laughing. I can remember truly laughing, but for me, with Coach, is being in the office and with him, watching him watch those Judge Judy and Judge Joe story. I can't remember his name, but Judge Joe Brown. Mm-hmm. Those kinds of, because that's what he watched when he was in the office, and us just laughing. Again, we never really talk basketball all the time. I think the loving father-son relationship and mentor relationship that I had with him. Mm-hmm. The stories are vast. They're vast, but we had this one time where we were down on, I'm going to say, in the Christensen district, where he goes to do his farming shopping, his fruit shopping, and I love spicy food, mm-hmm. and he likes spicy food too. Mm-hmm. So we go to this one place, and
it's by the Italian market.
Yes, the Italian market down in this neighborhood, and we had pork. Mm-hmm. Hoagies with some of the hottest pepper in the world. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it was, but I ate it and I act like it wasn't hot. Man, if you could have saw my eyes bloodshot red and like I was steaming. Mm-hmm. That was one of and he was laughing. Trust me, he was laughing at me, talking about, it's hot, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, oh man, it's hot. No, Coach, it's okay, I got it. Mm-hmm. I was on fire.
You mentioned, as a follow-up, you just mentioned Dwight Forrester. Mm-hmm. You guys now, you can talk about him now because he signed, getting his son in here, getting a legacy recruit in like Jake. Obviously, he's a good player, mm-hmm. And he has a lot of potential. What does it mean to get somebody back into the program who's connected to the program, a legacy recruit like him?
Well, you said it. It's a legacy. It's a legacy recruit, and he's going to have an opportunity to perform, mm-hmm. And to make his family proud. And make his new Temple family proud as well. I think that's a great thing. But you have to be able to perform. You have to be able to play. Mm-hmm. So we're just not going to come in and take everybody's child or young man or and even young women because their parents went to Temple. Mm-hmm. You know, we are here to help Aaron win games, mm-hmm. and help Temple push forward into winning a championship one day. So we want to get players that fit Temple's program, that fit Aaron's culture, and that can help us win. And if we can get all our, former players' children that can really, really help us do that, then we will take them. But other than that, no, we want to get guys here that can really play and give them a chance to perform.
Next question on the message board comes from D-Blaze75. This is an interesting one. Should college athletes be paid, and did Mark think about this when he was playing at Temple?
Never thought about it because it never came up when I was playing. Do I think about it now as an adult? Yeah, and that's a twofold question because if you pay them, what do you take away? And we talked about it earlier, and I talked about this before. You would have to find a way to be able to have them be adults, and I think that you can't pay everybody the same. If you can't pay every student athlete that's in a program, a money-making program, you shouldn't pay your young men. But if you could, then they would have to do everything that scholarship provides. So, and I said this, if you give them $150,000, say for instance you're giving them $200,000, so it's $50,000 a year for 4 years. I think that they should have to do everything. That means they have to pay for their books, pay for their classes, pay for their room and board, meaning rooms. Even if they live in the dorms, they have to pay for that. They would have to do pretty much everything in order for it to be fair. And I don't think that young men and women are prepared to do that. So, again, I would say no. I don't think they should get paid. I think the scholarship you get helps you become the person that you're going to be. You know, it's paying you. You have to work for it, but it's paying you. And all you have as an athlete, you have a whole lot of free amenities. Excuse me. You get gear. You get free room and board. You're getting, shuttled back and forth to games and places, whether it be planes, trains, and automobiles. That's a lot. That's a lot. Now, I'm not going to say you're not earning money for the school, because you are. But 16 of you guys, and it's 16 of here, 16 of there, and it works out. And and I could talk about this for years. I can talk about amateur status and all this kind of stuff. I just don't think that you can pay everybody the same. And if you can't do that, then you really can't pay them. So if a school like, and I said before, Randolph-Macon, if they have a program and you're giving young men and women $2,500 a month or $5,000 a month, you should be able to give Randolph-Macon and Division II or III, whatever school is going to be, the same amount of money. It's not going to happen.
Next question from the message board comes from C.H. Evans. With AAU programs playing such a prominent part in the recruitment of elite scholastic players, how difficult would it be to attract someone like you, a high school All-American, to a school like Temple in the current college basketball landscape?
It'd be very difficult, but that's establishing relationships. You have to try to establish a relationship with a young man and or a young woman. But since we're talking about Temple men's basketball, establishing a relationship and letting them know that we're here for you. We're going to try to help you improve to be what you may dream of. But the relationship that you establish with a young man, and they have to like your school. For most, their parents have to like your school. And have to be willing to take a chance. Again, my situation is much different, or was much different, because Temple didn't recruit me.
You say you recruited.
They were recruiting my teammate, and I wanted to come to school with him, so I recruited them. And when I saw Coach Chaney, I knew that's where I wanted to be. And it was about me playing basketball. It wasn't about me being a student. I learned to be a student once I got here. I came here to play basketball, and most athletes never talk about that. But most of students who play sports come to the school to play the sport.
Sure.
They learn to be students after that, even if they were good students, because people don't have a plan. They don't have a plan of study. They don't have a plan of freedom, the cultural freedom you're going to have when you leave home. If your mom and dad aren't there, you might have some strict parents. Now you get to flaunt and do everything. You get to make your own decisions. You don't have to come in the house. You don't have to get up in the morning and go to class if you don't want to. Those things are very important. They're very important. But again, it was different. It was just different for me. It was different.
So you still think it's possible? Obviously, you have some of the super high-powered ones and dons who are going to just keep Duke, Kentucky, Kansas at the top of their list, but it does sound like, Aaron, that maybe didn't say it this way, but it's like, well, why can't we go out and get those guys?
You have to go out and try.
Yeah.
Power five conferences our major conferences, because a lot of them have their own TV TV programs. Period. They have their own TV stations. Big Ten and SEC and those kinds of places. So their young men and women are going to be on TV all the time. But that doesn't mean that you can't go out and get one. That doesn't mean it at all. You might end up if you throw your minnow and your reel in the water, you can get a whale, or you can get a sun perch. You can get a whale. You want to get a whale, but you want to have a chance to get a whale. And again, you never know. Somebody might like the program well enough to say, you know what, I want to be a big fish in a little pond. And not to say that Temple's a little pond, but we're not in a big Power 5 conference. And we had 4 bids and we made our way. And we were, Coach Shane and myself were praying that guys kept going farther and farther, like Houston and people like that, because they were representing this whole conduit of the American Conference.
Next question, we kind of covered this already, but maybe reframe it for you. This is from Dawood B1 from the message board. He said, explain the coaching responsibilities you have under Coach McKie and how he sees himself impacting the program. We kind of talked about that already, but let me ask you this, kind of to piggyback off his question. Maybe after this coming season, someone says, what would you want people saying about you? And here's how Mark Macon impacted the program after the season. What would you want people saying about your impact in the program?
When you see him, you see me. When you see Coach Aaron McKie, you see me. That's how I impact this program, because we come from the same cloth. So I help him in ways that he might not see. That's why you have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. Can't see everything on the court. My eyes might see it. My mouth might be able to tell you. My ears might hear it. My mouth may be able to tell you. Again, when you see him, you see me.
Next one comes from Rockland Al. First, he says he wants to say, from the day that you dropped 31 against the Greek national team in your Temple debut until the last 3-pointer against Carolina, I love watching you play. Here's his question, getting into the weeds in that Elite Eight game. What did Billy King do defensively during that 1988 Elite Eight game that was so effective against you, or was different from other players who defended you that season?
Nothing at all. I think the greatest thing and I see that with them and their teams now, they had great team defense. They had great team defense. I got 29 shots off, and if I'd had a chance to get 31 or 32, I would have got those off too. But he was an excellent defender, but he did nothing spectacular that any other tough defender did. He had size, but I had size as well. And I had been used to playing against guys bigger than me my whole life. But they had great team defense. And that's what I remember about that game, that they played great team defense. If I got past him, somebody else was showing. And so he did nothing spectacular, trust me.
How often do you get asked about that?
Not often at all. Guys, if they see me and they talk about that game, they just said, man, I lost money. I lost this, man. Y'all should, you know what I mean? God tell me, Ted said that other day, man, you was shooting. I want you to make more shots. I was like, listen, I was trying to make all of them. I was shooting as much as I can. If I had more shots, I would have took more shots. Yeah.
Final question, final reader question comes from Ike TSN. This is from Twitter. What will Temple's basketball philosophy or identity be on the offensive and defensive end?
Toughness on the defensive end, pace, but pace with intelligence on the offensive end, and that's what we're looking at. We're going to try to create some pace, some pace, and on the defensive end, we want to be gritty, grimy, tough, mean, and with teeth in your stomach, like you said earlier. We want to have teeth in our stomach on defense. We want to fight for every loose ball, every rebound. When the other team comes down the floor, they need to see 5 guys with fire in their eyes and teeth in their stomach.
Mark, thanks, man. It's been a pleasure. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so a lot of good stuff there from Mark. It's always enjoyable talking to him. He's got a lot of good stories. One of the things, again, it was a longer conversation, but one of the things that really stood out to me that came up over and over again, and I think it's a positive sign for this program, again, and I said it a couple of times to Mark in the interview, talk is cheap. They've talked about wanting to win a national championship and establishing a culture, but that keeps coming up over and over again. And it's not to say that Fran Dunphy did not want to establish a culture at Temple. It's not to say that Fran Dunphy didn't want to win. And Mark mentioned this in the interview. He's like, each coach along the way has kind of passed the baton to the other person. Litwack to Don Casey to John Chaney to Fran Dunphy now to Aaron McKie. But there is a lot of tangible talk about, like, this is the culture we want to establish. We do want to win a national championship. We want to be tough. I thought it was really interesting because we've all of us have talked about it on the podcast. Like, I said to him, it might be sacrilegious for a Temple coach or any Temple person to want to compare themselves against Villanova, but why not? And he said in the interview there just now, he said, hey, it took him 17 years to win 2 national championships, but look at what Jay Wright has done, and he's established a culture there. We want to do that. Why can't we do that? So it's obviously something that they talk about because it keeps coming up. Aaron's talked about it. Jimmy's talked about it. Chris Clark talked about our culture. And again, it might sound kind of like fluffy and, talky, but it's something that wasn't being mentioned as much before, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even like you compare it to football and what they do.
Where it's been all culture,
yes.
like Al Golden establishing our culture
right.
and getting past it.
Yeah, because even it goes from everything to when you first walk into the practice facility to what's on the walls, to what's written on the walls, all that stuff goes into it. And, to a fan it might seem insignificant, but, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And I think the players obviously the members of the coaching staff, like Jimmy Fennerty, like Chris Clark, and like Mark Macon, I think they've bought into it already. There's definitely been some changes that Aaron's come in and done already. But I think with Mark, it just when the hire was first announced, or when it first became the light that Mark was probably going to join the staff, and we talked to him right after Aaron's press conference, and he couldn't say specifically that he was going to be a member of the staff because nothing was finalized yet, but it looked like he was certainly shaping up to be in some role, although that role was still kind of to be determined. But the thing that people have to keep in mind with this role is that, and Mark talked about this in the interview, but you can't go on the floor and coach. You're not one of those 3 assistants. You can't go out on the road and recruit. So you're pretty handcuffed as to what you can do with the players. But what Mark can do is kind of be a mentor. He can talk to these guys, especially he can pull a guy into his office and talk to him, and kind of if a guy is having some sort of issue or in some sort of slump, Mark can be like, hey, it's another guy in that building where Mark can be like, hey, I've been there before. This is how you should go about it. So I think a lot's made of Mark and the Jason Ivey hire, but what people need to understand is that he's not one of those 3 assistant coaches. So his role is more to be a mentor to these guys because he does have that playing experience. He played at a high level in college and obviously played in the pros, so he knows what it takes. But I think that's one thing that people have to keep in mind with this hire is that he's handcuffed and like Dave Duke was in that role before. It's really limited as to what you can do because the NCAA has those rules and you have to follow those in order to be in compliance.
So hopefully you guys enjoyed that interview and have a chance to go back and listen to it. A lot of good stuff from Mark Macon there. Mentioned at the top of the show that I also had a chance to talk to Michael Dogbe, again, one of 3 Temple players drafted. So Rock Yao-Sin went early in the 2nd round to the Colts. Rockwell Armstead went in the 5th round to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then Michael Dogbe, again, late in the one of 6 picks left in the draft, right? Went to the Cardinals.
Irrelevant.
Yeah. And so now, again, it's always good talking to Michael. He was, we talked to him back on January 31st, so I think it was 12, 13 episodes ago, something like that. And ironically enough, he was working out in Arizona at the time. So he's excited. And again, I think Mike in all 4 years at Temple has always had good perspective. He's been a very good and very productive player. And, as anxious he gets out there on May 9th to start minicamp, he'll be reunited with Hassan Reddick, with Jared Allen, who he doesn't necessarily go up against him, but a defensive lineman who played at Boston College, that Temple played against them earlier this year, and he's part of an interesting draft class now because they took Kyler Murray overall, and he's playing for a new head coach in Cliff Kingsbury, and playing for a new defensive coordinator, new defensive line coach, new staff. So again, had the opportunity to talk to Mike about just what it means to have his dream realized, what's next for him, and near the end of the interview, you'll hear him talk about what he thinks is next for the football program. He talked about that when we talked to him earlier in the year, but now that he has had the chance to continue to check in on the team, now that they have spring ball underneath them and past them, and now they're looking ahead to preseason camp, touched on that a little bit as well. So we'll let you listen to that interview, and again, as we do, react to it on the other side before we get to a couple of recruiting tidbits and then the remaining mailbag questions that you guys have for us. So I'll start with the obvious how does it feel question. I mean, people grow up wanting to play in the NFL. It's a dream. Now that it's actually here, you've been drafted. What's it like? How does it feel? What's it like just to kind of process it now that it's actually happened?
It's a surreal moment. It's still not real to me. I guess it'll be real once I go to the Cardinals and go into the locker room and see everybody. But it's just a dream come true. Just been working my whole life for that very moment, and to now say that I'm in the NFL and I have opportunity to play for a good amount of time, it's just amazing. Just all the hard work over the years, coming to Temple, just going through some adversity and, coming out on top and having a great season my senior year. It's just a blessing, and I'm very, grateful for the opportunity, they were giving me, the Arizona Cardinals gave me.
Mike, what were the nerves like? I mean, you were taking 6 picks from the end, and I mean, I'm sure in a lot of people's opinion, in my humble opinion, you're better than a 7th round pick, but you're sitting there, you got to be thinking, what's going on here? Like, how do you battle the nerves? What's it like when you're kind of sweating it out to figure out, like, am I going to go, or am I going to be a rookie free agent?
Yeah, it was very nerve-wracking. Just coming to the 7th round and still not having your name called, but. For me, my whole mentality was, everything happens for a reason, and all I need is opportunity, to showcase my talent and, to try to make a team. That's all anybody's looking for. So I knew drafted or undrafted, I was going to go to wherever I was going to go and, try my best to make the 53-man roster. It just so happened I received a call from, the Cardinals, and that was just a blessing. Like I said, just for them to decide that I was a guy that they wanted to bring in to help the team, I'm very, very grateful for that.
Where were you watching the draft? Were you up home, or were you down here in Philly?
I was in Philly. Had a couple friends and family come up, and just watching the draft, and it was just a really good moment, just having people who supported me my whole career be around, and just encouraging me to keep my head up throughout the whole draft. And then when I heard the call, it was just me, I was speechless, and just a lot of range of emotion was displayed.
Did you know it was coming? I mean, like, this might sound like a silly question, but when you get a call on your phone, do you actually study ahead of time, like, where these area codes are? Like, when your phone's ringing, did you know it was the Cardinals? Like, did you know it was coming, or were you looking at this number and saying, I wonder who this is?
Well, yeah, so my phone, it showed that, it had an Arizona area code, and throughout the whole draft, my agent's been, contacting me and texting me and telling me what's going on and what teams are saying what, and, I had a good idea just talking with the Arizona D-line coach prior to the call, that it could be them. They had about 3 picks left at the end of the draft, and my agent was saying there's a possibility that, if there's a D tackle that they're going to pick up, it could be you. So, I just kept that in mind. And, as soon as I picked up the phone and it was Arizona, I was just ecstatic. And, like I said, a range of emotion was just going through my mind. And it was just an exciting feeling.
Who's on the other line? Is it Chris, your D-line coach? Is it Cliff? Is it someone from the team? Who was talking to you?
It was a GM, but, as far as everybody, they passed the phone around just to congratulate me and welcome me to the organization.
As you're sitting there, you've seen Tyler was a 7th-round pick, Jacob's a 6th-round pick, Julian's a 7th-round pick, and these guys have made careers for themselves in the NFL. Are you hearing from those guys at all, kind of telling you to stay calm and saying, hey, this is what we had to go through, or are those some of the guys you're hearing from in those moments?
Yeah, those are all my guys. I talked to Tyler, I've even talked to Matt, Jacob, Julian, even Sharif Finch, and all those guys.
Sure.
Me playing with them throughout my career. They were very just encouraging and supportive. Because a draft pick is a draft pick. They always say only 254 guys hear their name called. So, for me to hear my name called, it's a tremendous blessing. But I know that now that I'm in, I got to work extremely hard to make this thing go and, make the 53 and, try to contribute as much as I can as a rookie.
What do you know so far? And obviously you'll know more once you get out there. It's a new coach, new defensive coordinator in Vance Joseph. And what have they talked to you all about, like, what their scheme's like, what they like about you, how they think you'll fit in out there?
They like my, just my motor and my toughness and the way I play and how passionate I play. But me, I'll most likely come in, play as a DN, having them have a 3-4. And then, they switch up their defense, have a nickel defense, possibly move inside. But, as I go into minicamp, I understand my role a lot more. And, going through the drills and understanding the defense, I'll know where exactly they would want to put me.
Mm-hmm. Have you had a chance to talk to Hassan yet? Because I figure it's kind of might be a cool fit for you guys, because I know he faces a lot of pressure. He's kind of looking to prove himself as a former first-round pick. It's kind of a fresh start for him. Obviously, a fresh start for you. Have you guys had a chance to talk and connect about what it's going to be like to play together out there?
Yeah, and I played with Hassan for 3 years, and 3-4 years, and he's like a big brother to me. He reached out immediately, and just asking him questions as what to expect, and he just says, come in and just do exactly what you did at Temple. Temple is different than a lot of other schools as far as how they prepare you for the pros, and he's just telling me, everything you were doing at Temple, what got you here, don't stop, continue it. Doing the little things like carrying a notebook, writing everything down, being 10 minutes, 15 minutes early to every meeting, executing in practice, running full speed. Those things are going to carry me a long way. So he was just encouraging me and, welcoming me to the organization, that he'll be like a big brother to me once I get down there.
We've talked about this before. When you were being recruited, you had Rutgers, BC, all these other programs recruiting you. Temple made you a priority. And now, 4 years later, you're part of a program that's really routinely sending guys into the league. They've had 3 players drafted now in 3 of the last 4 years. And it's becoming a program where now if you come in, you've got a good shot, and you do what you're supposed to do, you've got a good shot of getting to the league. Talk to me about what you thought the program was like when you first got to Temple, and what it's like now in terms of where they are, in terms of like routinely sending guys to the NFL. Did you think it would get to this point? And has does it feel different to you now that you're part of this community of guys that's like routinely getting to the next level now?
Yeah, just understanding Coach Rule's mentality at the time when he was in high school. I understood that he had a vision for how he wanted Temple to be and how he wanted people to perceive it. And, exactly right. He gave everybody a chance and an opportunity to come in, win games, and most likely possibly make it to the NFL. Growing up, I knew Temple as a school, that had a great football program. One of my former high school, alums, Mike Girardi, was a quarterback at Temple. And then also I'd watch Muhammad Wilkerson when I saw him get drafted. That whole era, they played some really, really good football. So I knew Temple, was a great place to be. They just went through a couple, bad seasons. But, Coach Rule and his vision to turn the program around, I wanted to be a part of that. Recruits sometimes get too caught up on how many offers they get, or the name of the school, or how many stars they have. But at Temple, all that gets thrown out the window once you're here. We're going to work, and we're going to win games, and we're going to send guys to the league. And I wanted to be a part of that. And as you can see within the recent drafts, you've seen guys who were part of winning seasons and get the opportunity to play at the next level.
Who are some of the, I mean, are there a couple of names that stick out, like just phone calls or text messages that you've received since being drafted where you're like, holy crap, I got a call from this person, or haven't heard from this person in a while, or some random person reached out to you? Any exciting phone calls or text messages where you're like, wow, this is pretty cool?
Yeah, as soon as I got drafted, my phone it was almost as if my phone was about to shut down. I got over, I believe it was like 300 text messages, all my social media platforms were, going crazy. But just I think what stuck out to me was just having a lot of the former players. There's a lot of guys that mentored me at Temple, because I played with some great defensive players and were able to win championships and a lot of big-time games. So guys like Matt Ioannidis, P.J. Walker, Hassan Reddick, Jacob Martin, Sharif Finch, Julian Taylor, just all those guys that I was able to be a part of. Curtis Martin, that really stuck out to me because it's like, we were all part of something great at Temple, and for me to reach this type of success is just as good as for me it is for them. So that's what Temple football is all about. The brotherhood that was instilled in us from when we were at Temple, and it carries over, in all walks of life, whether you make it to the NFL or not.
What's it like, Mike, if you had to talk to fans? I mean, is this something that you'll get into more when you get out there, or have you actually already started to talk to some of the guys that were drafted with you? Because at the end of the day, you're going to be part of a really interesting draft class, an important draft class for the Cardinals. Again, a new coach. They have the number 1 overall pick in Kyler Murray. You've got a guy like Zach Allen, who you played against earlier this season, a former defensive lineman when you guys went up to BC. Have you had a chance to communicate with those guys yet, or does that community of communication start yet, or is that something that happens more when you get out there?
So far I've talked to Zach Allen. Zach Allen was a guy I played, as you know, throughout the season at BC. And I trained with him over in Exos in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
He was a guy that, real good guy, he came into work, and, we had a chance to, just get to know each other. We would compete a lot, when it came to weight room stuff and on the field drills. So as soon as I got the call, he hit me with a text. He's like, welcome to the squad, teammate. As you know, he went in the 3rd round, I went in the 7th. So, just to have a guy like that, working with each other, it's going to be a great opportunity for both of us.
What did you expect? Like, when heading into the draft, did you have a gut feeling as to where you were going to go, or is it just so crazy where you're like, I have no idea?
Just knowing that this is probably one of the most deepest defensive line class, within recent history. I was hearing a lot of, late round grades, but I was the type of guy who wouldn't really pay attention to that, because as you can see, a lot of guys, within the draft felt they were going to go 1st round, didn't go to the 3rd round, or some guys thought they were going to go a mid-round pick, didn't get drafted. So I really didn't pay attention to that. But as far as my knowledge, getting feedback from my agent, it was going to be basically 5, 6, or 7. So, I had an idea, but I really didn't pay too much attention. My only hope was just to get a call, to get drafted, or just get an opportunity to make it to the next level. If it wasn't drafted, sign a deal right after the draft. So, like I said, I'm just grateful that, a team was interested in me, to draft me, and feel as though I can come in, compete to help the organization, and that's all I can ask for. And now, for me, it's just time to get to work.
So, according to Pro Football Focus, you had the most total pressures with 39 of any draft-eligible player in the American this season. Talk to me about how, and we've talked about this before, but now that you maybe get some time to reflect on it, how did you evolve over the years as not only just as a pass rusher, but just somebody who really made an impact in the backfield, whether you were tripping up a running back, whether you were busting any sort of play behind the line of scrimmage or getting to the quarterback? What were the steps that you took to just becoming a difference-making defensive lineman?
Well, it has a lot to do with, just my work ethic and, the vision I had for myself, coming into Temple, first and foremost, I was recruited as an outside linebacker, my junior year. I didn't make the transition to really defensive end my senior year. Had a real good year, within my sacks number my senior year in high school. So coming into Temple, played defensive end, was a real strong guy, really a bulky end, so they slid me inside. And just making that transition. Again, having guys like Matt Ioannidis, Julian Taylor, helping me make that transition. And, the coaching. When you come to Temple, you're going to get legit coaching. You're going to get probably the best coaching in the country. And that's really going to help you develop as a player. And over the years, I just took the coaching, studied my playbooks, schemes, and I would look at, film and study Ioannidis and Taylor, and that really just helped mold me into the type of player I am today, to the point where I would get on the field and, just reading different alignments allowed me to make plays quicker and faster. And again, it just comes down to my work ethic and my want to. I didn't want to settle for less. I knew I could be a dominant player for Temple, just a matter of time. So it's just a testament to, everything this program stands for.
When you were being, obviously we talked about this, it was 13 weeks ago, 13 episodes ago, you were on our podcast and you were actually working out in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
During that whole process, again, with teams, or maybe either you're going to do workouts for teams and stuff, I know you didn't go to the combine, but were there any funny questions that you got asked, or any questions that the teams ask you where you think, I never would have thought that one would have been thrown my way? Any funny questions that come your way, or anything that kind of throws you for a loop when teams are looking at you and trying to get you to crack or find out what you're made of?
I wouldn't really say funny. Some teams would ask me like riddles, especially when I was down at the Shrine game. Mm-hmm. But other than that, a lot of scouts and, teams and coaches would just say that, we've heard a tremendous amount about your character and how well your character is coming from your, Temple coaches. And, my off the field, whatever I do off the field is not really an issue. I'm a real good kid off the field. So, they just had a lot of good things to say. They didn't really, try to trick me. They ask you your normal questions like, do you do this or that? Or have you been, in trouble with the law? But other than that, they had a clean record for me, and they took it easy on me. But I know a lot of others, they try to hammer them with the questions.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, when you sign your contract, you're not going to be getting Kyler Murray money, but you're going to be signing a pro contract, which is obviously exciting. Have you thought about what you're going to do to treat yourself, to whether it's like something you've always wanted to buy, something you've wanted to get? Have you thought about the first thing you're going to do with some of the money that you get, or do you not allow yourself to get too far ahead with that stuff? Making, now that, I'm playing professional and, obviously it has its perks and everything, but right now, I'm not even worried about any of that stuff. My main thing is I'm just excited to play football again. Mm-hmm. For the past couple of months I've been running around in, shorts and underwear, and, that's not really football. You're doing like combine drills and stuff, but I'm just excited for the opportunity and living out my dream. And, I want to do my best to make the final roster and, contribute as a rookie and, help this team get back to where it wants to be. So I know, it comes with the money and stuff, and it's cliche to say that, you go do this and that, but, I'm not trying to play for 1 year. I'm trying to play for, more than that. So my whole goal going into rookie minicamp is to get better and better each day, so I can help this team out the best I can. How much confidence does it give you that, because, you bring up an important point, of course, draft picks can get cut. Sometimes 6th and 7th rounders, even 5th rounders don't make the roster, but, Tyler's made it, Julian's made it, Jacobs made it as late round picks, and you've had the guys that have gotten in as the undrafted rookie free agents. Does that kind of just give you the model the way for you to say, these guys have done it, I'm going to do it? It's just not a question in my mind. I'm going to make the team, because they've kind of gone into the NFL and kind of already paved the way for guys like me.
Yeah, it is definitely motivating, just seeing that, especially seeing guys like Sean Chandler not have been drafted but make the team. Julian Taylor, 7th-round draft pick, make the team. Tyler Metcalf, make the team. Jacob Martin, like you said, make the team. It's just very motivating, and just seeing that, just gives me, a lot of confidence as that, Temple prepares you for the league, and just stick to what you've learned in Temple and take it to the next level, and just go hard every single day, every single play. Put your mind into the, playbook and study it, and you'll give yourself a really good chance. And that's, all I needed was opportunity, and, I'm excited to get this thing started.
Right, just before we started recording, you said May 9th is when you guys start mini camp. Take us through what these next few days are going to look like for you in terms of what's next, in terms of preparing yourself, training, working out, just the logistics of getting out there. What's next for you?
I've been trying to just eat clean, working out, every day, and just staying in shape, stretching and things like that. I'm actually going to go home to Jersey just to go see my high school coaches. I like to always pay them a visit, because they play an important role in this whole football process for me. So going back to see the whole high school and maybe a couple close friends from back home, and just say one last goodbye to my parents before I go and lock in for mini camp and OTAs and stuff. So I do that, and like I said, just stay in shape and continue to stretch and eat right, and hopefully go through the playbook that I've been given, and just learn a lot of the schemes.
That's what I was going to ask you. So I'm assuming they FedEx that out to you and you're already starting to look at it? Or I guess email. I don't know how they do it now. If they email it to you, if it's a physical playbook that you get. So I'm assuming they've gotten that out to you already?
Yeah, so, it's just all the position drills that I'll, need to learn and get familiarized with it and the playbook, so as soon as I get there, I can, be acclimated pretty fast, so, I can make a case for myself and compete.
Mm-hmm. But another question for you. We got into this a little bit when we talked back at the end of January, but just sticking around, talking to the guys that are still at Temple and are going to be trying to fill your shoes. They've now been through a full spring practice with Rod Carey, Jeff Knowles and his staff. What's kind of the buzz that you've gotten from them about the new staff and some of the guys that you think are really ready to step in and kind of fill your shoes?
I think that, just going to the facility throughout this whole NFL process for me, I'll be looking outside and see their spring practices or how they are in the weight room. And, I believe the program is in real good hands. I know they have a lot of talent coming back from last year, and I'm just excited to see what they can do. As far as the D-line, I know a lot of young guys are starting to step up, such as Chris Banks and Ifeanyi Maje, and then you'll have leaders in Karama Diabate, Quincy Roche, and Dan Archibald. Those guys, I feel as though could really step up and take that D-line and continue the mentality of the Wild Boys. You also got guys like Dana Levine, who's also returning. So I believe the D-line is going to be in great hands as far as the depth and getting those young guys to develop. They're developing real nice, and I'm excited to see what they do. And as you know, our linebacker core is always going to be phenomenal. Those guys played together for up to 3 years now. So I'm excited to see how they all pan out. But I have real good faith in the defense and how they're going to execute this season. As far as the offense, a lot of weapons returning back. The quarterback situation with Russo, guys just competing at a high level, making each other better. So, I think, Temple can be as good as, they want to be. They can really go out and win a conference championship and, make a run. So I'm excited. I'll be definitely coming back to some games and, staying tuned and see what they do.
Mike, it's been a pleasure to cover your career. Good luck to you. We'll hopefully do this again next time when you're in the NFL and maybe at some point during a break in the season. But thanks for lending some time to us today, and hopefully we'll talk to you down the line soon.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. So again, as you normally get with Michael Dogbe, he's a guy who has just a lot of perspective on things. When I talked to him there and said, so according to Pro Football Focus, you have the most total pressures with 39 of any draft-eligible player from the American. He was a really productive player. Were you surprised to go in the 7th round? Were you sweating it out? And he's like, yeah, of course I was, but he kind of gets that it was a deep draft at that position, and just seems excited to get out there, playing for Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator there. Again, kind of an opportunity for Hassan Reddick to kind of, he's faced some scrutiny, he's faced some pressure as a top 15 pick. hasn't produced a double-digit sack season or anything like that, and so it's kind of a chance for them to get reunited, for Hassan to kind of prove himself to new staff, for Michael Dogbe to prove himself to a staff. So it was good to catch up with him, and of course he'll be tough to replace. And now he talked about Karamo Diabate and some of the other guys that have to fill his shoes, and whether it's inside, whether it's outside, playing at the DM position. And we've talked about that defensive line depth before, and what Rod Carey and Jeff Knowles hope they have with Karamo Diabate, with Quincy Roche, with Daniel Levine, with Dan Archibong, and guys like that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that conversation as well. Try to get in touch if we can with Raquel Armstead, with Rock Yassin, with any of the undrafted guys. Again, Robert Travato with the Giants. Nothing yet. We do have a mailbag question about this. Nothing yet from Ventel Bryant, right? Nothing.
No, nothing's
he hasn't
out
signed.
there.
I don't know if he's had options, if he's looking to try to get something other than just a mini camp invite. So we'll see what happens there. But again, we'll try to catch up with Armstead and Rock Yassin if we can in the future. But again, another successful draft for Temple. And again, one of the things I talked to Mike about was, when you came to Temple, they had players drafted, but now they've got a real good string going now. Again, when you look at that stat, for them being the only Group of 5 team or Group of 5 program to have that stat where they've had, what is it again?
Multiple players drafted over the last 4 years.
Yeah, so it gets easier and easier for them to say, like, we can get you to the NFL, and we can get you into the NFL. Over the years, you can look at guys who have been drafted in the first round, drafted in the second round, drafted in the middle round. So if you're them, obviously you hope that translates to recruiting. So we'll obviously talk more football in the weeks to come, get more guests in the week to come. Couple of recruiting tidbits to get into. Really one here that stands out for basketball. So they're in the midst of the live period. I think we put this on the message board last week. So all three guys have been out on the road at different times. Aaron McKie started the live period out in Pittsburgh to watch Jaleel White, who's playing for the Jersey Shore Shots.
Shore Shots, yep.
Yeah. So Jaleel White's a huge priority for them. Taj Thweet's still a huge priority for them. Now, additionally, Temple just extended an offer to Dominguez Stevens from Woodrow Wilson High School in Washington, D.C. He's a 4-star recruit. Rivals currently has him ranked 78th nationally in the 2020 class. So, again, we've talked about this before. Temple can kind of tighten in its scope, so to speak, on that 2020 class. At one point, it looked like they were going to have as many as 6 scholarships available. Now it's looking more like 3.
3, yep.
So, again, some names to keep an eye on. Again, we've known about Jaleel White, we've known about Taj Thweet, Dominguez Stevens. They're going to try to look to add a big or two as well. So, but they've gotten some of the hard work out of the way by adding a couple pieces in the 2019 class.
But this just shows, this is like an aggressive move that, just shows that they're not afraid to get in with a guy, even though it might be a little bit late because, he has some pretty big offers in the mix already. But, they're not afraid to get in the mix with a player who, has schools like Ohio State and other big programs that are already in on him. So, I think we've heard that they were going to get in on some top 100, top 150 players, and they've already identified most of their targets for the 2020 class, like Jaleel White, like Taj Thweet. But, with that third scholarship, it sounds like it's kind of the wild card where, do you bring a shooter in? Do you bring a big? Do you bring another wing? Like that's the wild card that we still kind of have to figure out what they're going to do with that third scholarship. If Jaleel White and Taj Thweet obviously end up coming here, which is still an F right now, but they're obviously working hard on getting those guys in for visits.
So again, stay tuned in the coming weeks. Again, we'll hope to have as much recruiting news as possible, both on the football side of things and the basketball side of things, and we'll continue to bring as many guests as possible. Again, we're still trying to get Monty Ross in and maybe Aaron McKie back in, maybe some football players as well. So let's get over to some mailbag questions. They were specifically just for us. These are non Mark Macon mailbag questions. we didn't have a chance to put out a call for mailbag questions from Michael Dogbe. That was an interview that kind of came together later in the day. So these are for Matt and I. These are just, again, non-Mark Macon specific. First one from D-Blaze75. What are your favorite places in the Philly area to get a burger, and how do you like your burger? You even a big burger guy?
No, I like burgers. Yeah, honestly, like a burger though. I'm cool with a burger. I don't love cheese. Like I'd go with a burger, plain hamburger with ketchup, and that's really all I need. I like a medium or medium well. But honestly, I think the Draft Horse has a pretty good burger. It's a little bit pricey, but I like the Horse. I'm trying to think of a few other. Where do you like?
I don't need a ton of. I think. I mean, I know it's a chain, but I like Shake Shack. I think Shake Shack's really good. Again, I'd love to get him back on the podcast at some point. My buddy Andrew Goldstein up in New York actually is part of this like Gotham Burger Social Club or something like that. If he's listening, I'm probably butchering this, but they go to different spots in New York and go on a tour to eat different burgers. And he could chime in on that. He's a big foodie. Hopefully, we'll have him on again in the future. He's on the Sorry I've Been So Busy podcast with Matt Goldich, who actually had one of his jokes read, and then Matt got a chance to explain it last night on Seth Meyers. So I don't know. I actually like making them, like almost like I'm making a meatball, like making the meat and like putting breadcrumbs and garlic and onion and stuff like that. But I don't know. I think Shake Shack's is really good. I can't think of the last. I wish I had like a hole in the wall type of recommendation.
I used to really like London. We talked about London before.
London Grill.
So London is closed, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
You're right. That's a good. They had good burgers.
They had a good burger, and it was on. You get it on an English muffin, which was unique.
Yes.
That was a really good burger.
Very
I used to really like that spot.
Very good call. My buddies who listen to this, who graduated in the late 90s in my era, will appreciate that because they used to go to happy hours there all the time. Used to live right up the street from there. And Rembrandt's used to have a pretty good burger. Another place literally right up the street from there that has also closed. I'm more like, I don't know, I feel like I know like better spots for cheesesteaks and roast beef sandwiches and roast pork sandwiches and stuff like that. But it's a good question. Next question from Twitter at Dr. Drew. What is your understanding as to why Michael Dogbe fell to the 7th round of the draft? Wasn't there talk at one time of him going as early as the 2nd round? Good question. Again, we talked about that earlier in the conversation with Mike. It's hard to say if he had gotten invited to the combine, would that have helped push him up a couple rounds? Maybe. Mm-hmm. Did he have the opportunity to do that in workouts or pro day? Possibly. It's hard to say, but yeah, it was just a deep position.
Right, and yeah, I mean, if he put up the numbers that he did at pro day, at the NFL combine, I do think that would have bumped him a little bit. But yeah, the fact that he didn't get the combine invite did hurt, and it was a matter of it was a deep defensive tackle draft, and there were a lot of good defensive tackles in the mix. So with that, it can almost be a toss up, and each teams have their preference on guys and fit wise. But at the end of the day, I think it kind of ended up working out in Mike's favor because sometimes you see a guy fall to the 7th round and the fit might not be right, and a team just kind of grabs him because it's a good value pick. But in this case, I think Arizona does have a need at defensive tackle, so he'll have a good opportunity to make the team. And in certain situations like Robbie Anderson, it probably worked out better for him to be an undrafted guy. But in this situation, I think Mike, has a really good landing spot in Arizona, and he's going to have a really good chance to make the team. So I think things ended up working out for him all right. Obviously, the pay bump would have been nice if he would have maybe gotten the fifth,
sure.
4th round thing. But I think that's the biggest difference. The pay is a little bit lower, but overall, I think Mike has a pretty good landing spot, and if he does what he needs to do, he might end up getting paid on that Matt Ioannidis level, like when he gets that second contract.
Mm-hmm. And I thought he might have gone. Again, what do I know? It's all guesswork after a while, unless you're in the war room with these teams. I thought he might have gone a little higher, just because one of the things I did ask him in the interview, in case you didn't hear it, was, did you get asked any kind of weird questions? Again, you weren't at the combine, but when you met with teams, did you get asked any weird questions? He's like, not really. He's like, they want to ask some of the same stuff. Did you ever get in trouble with the law? Blah, blah, blah. But he's been a good student, very productive player, coachable guy, has a really good reputation. There's really no dirt on Michael Dogbe.
Yeah, he's all business. That's how he's always been.
I thought that he might go a little higher because his the bench press numbers were good. His football stats were good. He's been a productive player. It's not like he's this weight room monster who doesn't get it done on the field. He does. But again, we'll see what happens. As you said, if he can get to that second contract, that's really good for him. Did mention this before. We'll read the question. What to you from the message boards? You might have talked about this already. But any word on Ventel Bryant signing and where as an undrafted rookie free agent? No word on it yet. Just got confirmation on that. Again, I haven't talked to Ventel personally, but he's not signed anywhere yet. Again, I don't know if he's holding out for something beyond a rookie camp invite, but I guess I'd kind of be mildly surprised if he didn't end up getting a shot somewhere. But those things can still develop. As far as I know, he's healthy. So we'll see what happens there. Final question. This comes from the message board from C.H. Evans, who also asked a question to Mark Macon earlier in the show. What are your thoughts about the new bowl game at Fenway?
Gotta love it, right? I mean, the only thing that I wouldn't like is the weather in Boston in December. But other than that, I mean, Boston's a great city. Fenway's a really cool venue. So it's an ACC opponent, so you could even go up there and face Boston College or Syracuse or something like that. So I think it's great for the ACC. Obviously, I think it was kept with Temple, UConn in mind, and those Northeast schools in mind. So obviously a good thing for Temple in that maybe they won't end up in Shreveport again, because Shreveport. You
guys lived it, I didn't.
Shreveport was not as nice of a city as Boston.
You guys came back like as if you were soulless. You're like,
I will say though, you could live like a king in Shreveport. I think we've already talked about this before, but Boston, I mean, you go up there, it's like Philly in that it's not overly expensive, but it's pricey, and in Shreveport, you live like a king. You can get food. Even at the hotel, food was ridiculously cheap. Like I was like, this beer at the hotel lobby was $3. I was like, what? So where do you get that?
Beer was $3 here. You're like, what's the special? Or did you just calculate that? So I think of that line from, was it 40-year-old Virgin, where they're at the bar and Paul Rudd goes, oh, it is $9 beer night.
Yeah, right.
It's expensive in California, but yeah, I'd be a huge fan of the game. I mean, I think. I think it's a huge opportunity for Temple again if things align right, and this is for 2020, right? This is not a 2019 bowl game, right? So yeah, I mean it's as of now it's slotted, and again things can change based on who's bowl eligible and who's not. But yeah, it would pit an AAC, American Athletic Conference opponent against an ACC opponent. So as you said, if you could play Boston College up there or Syracuse up there, it's a really good regional game where you've got two top 10 media markets going at it, and again, as you said, it would be a heck of a lot more enjoyable trip for fans. It's drivable, the food's good. Yes, it would be cold. Hopefully they would have, if they are playing in that game in 2020, hopefully it's an enclosed press box. Still, there was nothing like covering that 2009 Eagle Bank Bowl at RFK Stadium, outdoor press box. Oof. Trying to tweet during that game, I think I eventually had to stop. My fingers were numb. It was so cold. I think it was like a high of 26 that day. So it could be the same thing up in Boston, but as you said, the food would be good. It would be great. So again, I think does it dilute bowl games? Yes. And talk to us in a couple years when you could have fewer and fewer players playing in bowl games. Again, that touched Temple this year where Rock Ya-Sin and Rockwell Armstead did not play. Looked like a smart move. They both got drafted. They both have futures to think about. So, but yeah, I mean, if they're eligible for that game, they get selected for it in 2020. Would definitely be a good thing for them.
By 2020, 65% of FBS teams will play in bowl games. 65%. Yeah. That's pretty unreal.
Yeah. So again, it kind of dilutes the product, but would still be a fun time. I did text my buddy Andrew Goldstein and said, do you have a favorite burger spot in Philly? I said, we just got asked that question. We had a few places. He said, I'm very, very inexperienced. There are a ton I need to try, but Kensington Quarters blew me away. So he said the burger there was really good. Have not been there. We'll maybe try to get there with him when he comes back. So, but that'll do it for this week. Big thank you to again, Mark Macon and Michael Dogbe for joining us on the show this week. We will be with you guys next week, hopefully with a full house. Hopefully Graham and Kyle will be back, unless they're just never going to speak to us again.
We'll see.
Never know with those guys.
Yeah, maybe.
Never know. Yeah, they should be back next week. So thanks for joining us again, and we will talk to you soon.